I think they fit the persona of what Denver is and the team and everything else. And he stays pretty even keel and pretty calm. When he needs to get fired up, he does, but not overly so. And I think that's been a huge thing for him where there hasn't been, there's no drama around Bo Nix.
Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Broncos and Bourbon. I'm your host, Phil Milani. Very excited for today's episode as Susie Wargin, the Broncos sideline reporter for KOA, joins the program. And this is a special episode. Susie, just such a special person. I saw on Instagram this week that she posted that she started 30 years ago this week at KBPI, a station here in Denver. And she was just a DJ, playing music and hosting shows and stuff. But then obviously she's gone on to have just such an amazing career, such a pioneer for women working in sports. And we'll get into all of that with Susie. She became the first female reporter ever for KOA. She spent 14 years at KUSA 9 News here in Denver. I remember, growing up watching Susie in the mornings on KUSA here in Denver. And then obviously now she's back at iHeart, very busy. She's also a realtor here in the Denver area. So Susie, very busy and very lucky that she was able to squeeze us in this week for a little bit of time for some Broncos fans here on Broncos and Bourbon. I hope that you enjoy this conversation. If you do, please like and subscribe as we continue to grow the brand here and get bigger and bigger. And also, I hope that everybody is getting a chance this week to, celebrate Thanksgiving with their family and friends and their loved ones. And, this holiday, really, football has become a little bit synonymous here with Thanksgiving, food, family, friends, having a good time, and then, of course, football on the TV. So just a special holiday this week as we give thanks. And, I'm don't want to get all sentimental here, but I'm very thankful for this program and for all of you who check it out every single week. So thank you very much for being a part of Broncos and Bourbon. So anyway, with that, here is my conversation with Susie Wargin. Susie, thank you for taking some time on a busy Thanksgiving week here. I know that you guys are getting set to head out to Washington for a big game. So thank you so much for taking some time to join the show. How you been doing?
Good. I miss seeing you, Phil.
I know.
Are you bummed that now you're not around, that we're having a great season?
Yeah, we lived through some lean years together there. Of course, the COVID season and all that too. And then now all of a sudden, the magic is back around the Broncos. So yes,
feels like it.
I have a little bit of that missing out feeling for sure. What's it been like for you being on the sideline for some of these games this year? It seems like every game coming right down to the wire.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, I think. I think that's the thing that is hard you just never quite get used to it, because the end of the game is so, obviously it's intense from a football standpoint, but it's very intense from a media standpoint. And I think anybody, doesn't matter what medium you're in, you kind of have an idea of where you think a storyline is going. And then it completely changes in the final second. And you literally have to instantly switch to, okay, what are my new set of questions? And now I do have to get to interview somebody, because I only get an on-field interview if there's a win. And so if we lose, I may have all these great questions lined up, and then all of a sudden, it doesn't happen. Well, lately, thankfully this year, it's been happening the opposite way, where all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I got to figure out some things pretty quickly. Obviously, it's easy to go, can you believe the game ended like this, is your first question, but then to kind of get more into that. So sometimes it's a difficult mind switch to really go from one train of thought to another one, but I think we're getting used to it. I don't want to get used to it. I just want the Dallas wins, where it's there's just no question. And it's just a done deal from start to finish, basically.
That's what it was weird. During the bye week, gosh, I'm not stressed out on Sunday. This is kind of strange.
Yeah, I know. Stressed out watching other games that now could affect us. Which is that's a great spot to be in.
Yeah, this is a new feeling watching the Chiefs play such a thrilling game, being the outcome of this one actually matters. That's kind of an interesting new position for Broncos fans. You mentioned talking to these guys after all these games, and you do so much with the team. What's different about this year's team? It feels like there's a good energy around that Broncos facility these days.
Is, and Phil, you're going to hear a lot of guys talk about it too. They've talked about Will Lutz just signed a new contract, and he said this is one of the best locker rooms I've ever been in. And you'll hear even Talanoa Hufanga, who came here, and he's been in a few and was on some successful teams, and he talks about how close this team is, and how tight they are. And I think that even when you were still with the team, we were starting to see that change. And there's some of the same guys that were there back then, the Jonathan Coopers and the Benitos. There were young guys at that point. But those were the core of, I think, what Sean Payton has kept around of quality guys that have good character. There's no toxic traits about them. And there's been some toxic personalities that have come through that locker room. But sometimes coaches and staff will overlook those traits for talent, and then they get burned because it doesn't matter. I mean, some guys can be very toxic and talented and it'll work, but I think at some point, if you are not good for a locker room or a character of a team, it doesn't matter how talented you are, you can't last, and it's not sustainable to have lasting for a team. You can be that one single person, but to make a whole 53 plus workout, it's not going to work. So I think they have finally found, and credit to Sean Payton as far as like bringing in and helping to talk to George Payton and Rich Hurtado and all the other people that are up there making those decisions about who do we bring in to make this very cohesive and make the character of this team different. And it is very different this year. And I used to say, hey, the offense, the defense doesn't mind that they're not playing, that the offense isn't playing as well, and they're doing so much better. And I truly believe that. But like this year, I'm like, that is really true this year, where there are guys up rooting for each other on each side. Cortland will come through and congratulate guys on the defense. Guys on defense will go through and congratulate guys on the offense. And they're really there for each other more than I've ever seen it before. And I thought I had seen it before, which I had, I think, to a point, but it's next level. And it's very apparent, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, that's great to see because, being around those teams after Super Bowl 50, that defense was still like a Super Bowl championship defense, but the
Yeah.
offense clearly wasn't. And you could feel that tension in the locker room, with those guys. So great to see that this team really is able to keep it together and play that complementary football. What do you think it is about Sean that he was able to identify what he was looking for, and then also being willing to make some hard decisions? Because gosh, it feels like not that long ago that this organization was in a sort of such a point of transition with ownership. It seemed like every year they were looking for a quarterback. The head coaching position was changing all the time, but now it seems like they've got all these big positions really firmly in place.
Yeah, the stability factor is huge, Phil. And you mentioned ownership, and I think that has a lot to do with the success of not only of Sean Payton knowing what he wants. He's had success before. He's a good coach. He comes from, as he says often, the Bill Parcells tree. And so he knows what it takes. But I also think that the Walton Penner group of basically saying, what do you need? And I think they understood after that first year, it was the Russell Wilson thing where it was, all this money and then it just didn't work out. And now they've just been hamstrung, not so much, it's gotten better each year. And I think after this year, it's way better. I don't think there's anything left after this year, but I think they realized, okay, we need to be much more careful. Can't just be the big splash with the name. We've got to make sure we're doing the right thing, but what do you need? And so they've been very good about, and then they're so involved with the players and with the alumni. And I mean, you see the post-game pictures and, people are hugging Carrie and Greg. And when Mr. Walton comes out and other, Condoleezza Rice is there and other ownership members, I should say ownership. I don't even say members isn't the right word. They're
Yeah,
not
the
members.
ownership group, I think group. Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I'm looking for. They're not members. They're
Yeah.
like group.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see that from them. And it starts at the top. And we see this in so many organizations where if your ownership is not all in and wanting that championship and willing to do what it takes to get there, they're just out there hoping to print some money and be able to go on their vacations. And it's really cool that I have a football team. Well, that's not how the Walter Penner Group is. They want to win. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, they didn't build the Walmart franchise by just sitting around going, isn't this cute that we have this store? No, they went out and I mean, it is what it is because of what has happened throughout that family. I mean, it's not just them. Obviously, it's been generations, but this is what they know and this is what they want. And they're doing everything. I mean, the facility is going through such a magical change there with what they're doing. The new stadium is going to be unbelievable. I had a chance to, I talked with Carrie Penner when we were over in London and had a great interview with her that we split up into two segments for pregame. And I talked to her about the stadium. One of the things I love that she said, because they're always at the opposing stadiums and I watch them, talking to the other owners and things like that before the game. And I said, are you looking around at things, that you like and you want to do? And she said, to be honest, we have a longer list of what we don't want to do than what we do want to do. And she said, all the, other owners have been very forthcoming about if I was going to do it again, I would do this. And, and that's not only for players, but that's for the fans. That's for the whole experience of what everything is. And so when you have that at the top, and then it just comes down and it filters out, the players feel loved, everybody's feeling good about it. I think that's been the biggest thing. And Sean Payton is a big part of that, where he's got their backing. Do they say yes to him every time? Probably not. I don't know, but I think they say yes to him more often than not.
Yeah.
So he's been able to get a lot of those pieces and parts that he needed, that he felt were important, and then get rid of the ones that he was like, not working.
Yeah, it is amazing. I feel like the Broncos really were missing that, through this transition here. And even when you talk to the older players about Mr. B and what he meant, just being around, you need that sort of role to
You
have a successful team. I think
Yeah,
really.
those old guys will talk about working out next to Pat Bolin in the weight room
Yeah,
and things. He was there training for his triathlons, and to have that, like, my owner is right here on the treadmill next to me. That's pretty cool for a player. Whereas in some organizations, it's so disconnected, and they, don't even know. The owner shows up on Sundays maybe, and glitzes and glams and sits up in the suite, and there's no connection at all there to the players, and the players feel that. So it,
yeah.
it's a cool feeling for them.
Yeah, it just feels like really positive and such a good energy coming out of the building these
Big
days.
time.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you could really feel that. And I think Bo Nix is a part of that probably too. Just sort of the being a captain and the leadership skills. What have you seen from him this year? Because I think it's easy for fans, and I'm certainly guilty of this too. Is like riding that roller coaster. One week it's really good, one week it's down, and you can go through those ups and downs. But he's really stayed consistent, it seems like, with his approach, at least throughout this whole year.
Think so too, Phil. He's always pretty even keel. I mean, you'll see the camera shots get him sometimes where, he might be yelling or something like that. But I feel like this year, even more so than last year, and everybody's going to learn. It's a steep learning curve in the NFL, especially if you're a starting quarterback. And if you're thrown into the fire and you've got to learn, by game, it can be tough. And people need to, I love watching the Manning cast, and especially because Peyton and Eli always bring up stuff that happened in their first and second year. And I'm like, I hope Broncos fans are listening to this, because they're talking about all the things, all the interceptions, and they show highlights of it too. They're so humble about things like that, and talk about how they weren't perfect in years 1, 2, 3. And it takes a while for all of that to come around. But I do think that Bo has great support from his teammates. He's very well liked, very well respected. He's relatable. He's all those things. Not that Russell Wilson wasn't, but Russell Wilson was just a very different person. And anybody that was around Russ knows that Russ was just Russ. I mean, and Russ, I mean, he is kind, I don't think he has a bad bone in his body, and is so very nice, but just, I don't think is relatable sometimes. And it's hard to have a teammate like that, especially your starting quarterback, where there's not that jiving. Whereas like Bo is one of the guys, they all hang out, they've all got their wives, all love each other, and they do that. And Russ and Sierra, they're different level. Like that was
Yeah,
just, whoa, we don't really do that in Denver. That is
yeah,
LA, New York. That's we're used to that. We're used to like hanging out together and being, like you feel like I could go sit down and have a beer with Bo and Izzy and have a good conversation or something like that. So I think they fit the persona of what Denver is and the
Hmm.
team and everything else. And he stays pretty even keel and pretty calm. When he needs to get fired up, he does, and but not overly so. And I think that's been a huge thing for him where there hasn't been, there's no drama around Bo Nix. And I love that he came in a little older. He was already married and now they're having a baby. And so there's like all this stability in his personal life, which is a huge help because we've seen a lot of starting quarterbacks come in that have instability everywhere else and then it shows on the field. And that's a tough road to go down for those quarterbacks.
Yeah, when there's too much in your circle, it's really hard to be able to just focus on the football.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely seems like Bo has come in and like really meshed with the city. You've seen him in a lot more commercials, and like I feel like Denver was so thirsty and like starving for a quarterback after every game we saw that carousel graphic with the quarterback popping up, and then now we finally it feels like the city has got somebody who they can really get behind, and they've certainly done that with Bo because even on this program, like anytime there's any kind of criticism toward Bo, fans really step up and they want to defend him. We saw Adam Troutman in the locker room, a couple of weeks ago.
I
So
love
yeah,
Dragon
you can
Slayer
really see
69. It was
see
so fun.
this team has really gone behind Bo for sure. So good to see that. How do you think that this team will come back from a bye week? They had won 8 games in a row, really in a groove there. Then you get the bye. How do you expect them to bounce back, or I guess not bounce back, but like return from a little bit of time away?
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because Sean truly gave them all last week off. And then on Monday, they came in for a little bit. Tuesday had a very traditional day off. So back to work on Wednesday. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond because football, as I hear guys talk about it, where I hear the old guys were like, we never got all that time off in a bye week. Like, what's
Yeah,
going on? It's always harder, the decades and the years before the current guys. But
of
it
course.
is those things where football is a very you've got to be conditioned and you can get out of condition very quickly if you're not playing. So I mean, I do think that these are smart guys. We thankfully none of them showed up in the news last week. That's always the thing that you don't want to have happen. So
Yep.
that can happen, which is good. And I think that we've got smart guys that will also say, hey, you know what, I need to make sure even though I'm off, I'm going to go lift or I'm going to go do this or I'm going to go do something. I don't think any of them probably sat around and did nothing for a week because that's just not in their DNA. They may not have worked as hard as they would have with practice because they do need a break. Their bodies need to, I mean, it's been all these weeks and they haven't had a break. So, and especially with the travel with Philly and London, and it was just like, here we go again, here we go
Yeah.
again. And now we have this big break, which has been it was like nice to have that mini bye after the Thursday week. That was very nice. I was like, oh, I need this too. I'm not even playing, but I need this break. And as you used to work there, it gets to be really a grind. I mean, for
Oh my
every,
gosh.
it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And
It is hard, especially this time of year.
yeah, first world problems because we're doing the NFL. But I'm just saying it is hard and it gets tiring and we're not the ones out there, beating each other up on the field.
Yeah, but like start if you think about it, when it really starts going in the middle of July, and now
Yeah.
it's starting to get cooler. It's the holidays. You think back, July feels like a long time ago. So a lot of work goes into this thing.
Yeah, wearing shirtless shirts, going to my multiple layers with my hand warmers and my
Yeah.
heated vest. It's very different.
Yeah, you got to be ready for anything on the sidelines, Susie. Yeah,
I do.
that's
Yeah.
that's
I've,
tough.
I've learned to build up lots of layers in my closet throughout these years of doing sidelines, and I'm pretty close. I've got it down. I can hit Buffalo. I'm a little concerned about Christmas Day in Kansas City because that
Hmm.
one can be a doozy, but we could have some doozies at home. We've been very lucky this year. We've had a lot of really nice weather days at home, which is nice, but that could change in December.
Yeah, yeah. And so, how do you feel about this game against the Commanders? Of course, Von Miller facing the Broncos again.
Yeah.
He's been having, I think, 5 sacks this year. So, how do you feel about the game overall?
Yeah, I think everybody's disappointed that it's not going to be Jaden Daniels. I think a lot of people thought that we might get flexed out of Sunday night because we weren't, it wasn't as interesting of a matchup. But I think everybody also wants to see the Broncos, so it was smart of them to keep it there and stay on a Sunday night. So I've been watching, now that we've had some time to watch some games. I mean, they're not playing bad, and it's one of those things where that could be a team. And we talk about trap games, right? Where it's like You coming off the bye, you're feeling pretty good, don't have to win because you're still looking pretty good. But I don't see this team having that kind of mindset. Like a couple years ago, we saw it happen. They had to go down to Houston, right, and win 3 games to make it, and then they went and laid an egg in Houston, and everybody was like, "What just happened? How did that
Yeah.
happen?" I don't think that's going to happen. And Sean's taking the team out on Saturday. So, and then staying the night, Sunday night, we all come back on Monday morning. So it's one of those kind of longer trips, which is always interesting. But he always talks about all the sleep patterns and things like that,
Yeah.
the
The
sleep
science.
study
Oh
that they
yeah.
do. Science. Yes, science. So supposedly that's going to be better for everybody if all the players stay over on Sunday night. But honestly, I feel like, maybe who knows? Nobody knows if Bo sat and worked on his footwork during the week or, anything like that. I think Cortland and Pat were up in Aspen with their wives. I saw some social media from there. So I don't know that any of them got together and did any practicing. Do they need to? I don't know. I think it's all just going to have to come together most often in a game where they start to get that timing down. They start to figure out all of those things. And I think that they can, I mean, why not? They can do it against the Commanders. I mean, is Vaughn going to be there and going after him? Absolutely he is, but he will probably say, I love the Broncos, and then go out there, and do what he can on sacks, and afterward be like,
Of
I still
course.
love the Broncos.
Yeah. That sounds like Vaughn.
Oh my gosh, that guy, he cracks me up. Every year I MC his gala that he does. He still comes back and does a fundraiser every year here for Vaughn's Vision, which is still fun. And every year he gets up and talks about how much he still loves the Broncos,
Yeah.
which is funny. If they signed him, he would come in a heartbeat. I know he would.
Oh yeah, I think I saw him he's got his little free range podcast, and he was saying that he tried to talk to George this offseason, but of course the Broncos have a million pass rushers, so it
Yes.
just wasn't going to be a fit.
And
But
pretty good
yes,
ones too.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hope
Yeah,
they do like the Gronk thing where Gronk signed the 1 day in New
they
England.
have to.
Yeah, they got to do something like that for
They have
Vaughn.
to.
So
Yeah,
yeah, he's too
absolutely.
important to the organization for
When
sure.
the time comes, I mean, gosh, who knows how much longer he can keep playing because he still keeps going out there and making plays.
I know. Yeah, he can still do it. Like he calls himself a 3 point shooter. So he come in on third down and go after the quarterback. That's his role, and he
That's a
can still
great
do
life
it.
to live. You
Yeah,
would live a much longer time in the NFL if you can do it like that.
totally, totally, totally.
Third down
Well,
specialist.
Susie, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career here because I saw on Instagram you posted the picture of you DJing 30 years ago. That was so cool to see that. And then, of course, you've had this just tremendous career here in Denver, doing radio and being the first female reporter for KOA, and then all those years with Nine News. What do you, when you look back on it, I'm sure you, with 30 years, being such a big mark this week, when you look back at it, what do you think about all of this, and being this pioneer here?
You know what? It's crazy, Phil, because it was nothing that I ever set out to do. I wanted to be originally just in radio. I just wanted to be a DJ. That was all I wanted to be, growing up and in high school. And then I got there at age 25, which it was so funny. I was putting in for my vacation for, around Christmas break, and I was in our work day, which is what iHeart uses. And I noticed that it said original hire date. And I'm like, oh, wow, November 23rd. And I thought, 1995. Oh my gosh, that's almost 30. I was like, that's 30 years ago. So I didn't even notice that it had been that long. And after I posted it, people are like, oh my gosh, you made me feel so old. But what's funny is I try and always get back to comments, when people post on Facebook and Instagram. And the Facebook post has over 500 comments on it of people that are
Wow.
saying, oh, I remember those days, or I won tickets off of you. And I remember you played a set of music for me. And I thought, I've been reading these to my husband, and I'm like, people remember like these little things 30 years ago that they won tickets with me, or I met them at a bar night at Pinky's or at Whiskey Bill's or something like that. And I'm like, that's amazing to me, because we don't think about people that we touch and we see, and this is our job and this is what we do, and it's cool to be on the air. But then when people say, I listen to you every day, and sometimes I'd go in the back room and I'd take a nap, and I called it Susie nap time because you were like in the background. Wow, it's been really cool, and I want to respond to everybody, and I'm going to try and work on it. It's going to take me a long time to get back to that many comments, but it's been really neat to see that. And so, I mean, I thank people that listen, because if we don't have listeners or viewers, then we have nothing, right? So it's the people that make our jobs possible, which is what's really cool. But then my radio family, which I mean, I mentioned a few of them in there, and they were all related to the KBPI kind of Fox part of it, the FM side. There's been many more on the AM side, Dave Logan and the whole KOA crew and things like that. But when I look back at that, I think about how lucky I was to get these opportunities that were mostly given to me by men, which was very cool. Bob Richards at KBPI, Don Martin at KOA.
Hmm.
Patty Dennis was like the first female boss that I had when I went to 9 News. So it was cool to be recognized that way as a very young person by men in the industry that, wanted to, kind of help break some of those barriers too, which was really cool. And so I was just doing like what I wanted to do. I didn't think about ever being that I'm the first female. I want to be the first female or anything like that. I just kept kind of progressing. Once I got to one goal, I'm like, well, here I am 25 and now I'm working at KBPI. This was my like dream.
Yeah.
So what's next? So then it kept kind of going from there. And then I'm like, well, maybe I'll try TV. And so did TV for a while. And then I thought, okay, kids are older. I need to be around more. I'm going to do real estate. And then the radio station came back and said, would you come back and work for us? And so it's just been this, and radio really has always felt, and I loved my time in TV and my TV family, but radio was the first true love for me. And so to have come back full circle, work for them, do the sidelines for a team I grew up rooting for. When I was going through, oh, here, I actually have it right here. I have this picture that I found of my brother and I, and look at him in his little Orange Crush shirt. That
Oh
was
my
Halloween.
gosh.
Isn't that funny? As I was trying to
That's
find old,
awesome.
because I knew I had one, and I'm like, I can't find my picture, but I found the one of my brother wearing it. So, and I was a cheerleader, of course, and there's my brother in the Orange Crush. But so that was like, I mean, we love this team. And so to be a part of it is just so cool. And, now I'm like, I could be all of their mothers. All these guys are the same ages as my kids. They're 23, 24, 25 or younger. And so I feel like I have this kind of mama bear thing, and the girls, you mentioned, like, I get together this women's group, and they call me, they're like, you're like our mama bear, you organize all of our meetings. Like, well, if I
Yeah.
can do that now and help pay it forward, I don't want to be the one that like sticks around and everybody goes, oh, we should probably invite Susie because it's Susie. And I'm like, I want to still be like the fun mom and be there, but I don't want to overstay my welcome. And so I want to stay in this and do it as long as I can, but I don't want to be one where they're like, man, it's time to kind of kick her to the curb. That's why I said, we can't
Nobody's
say,
saying that, Susie. No way. No way.
if it's 30 years, Phil, that's why I said, I'm like, get me out because I need to be gone.
Yeah, no, we had Romy on last year, and she was talking so much about you, and so I know that you mean so much to so many people. I mean, me included. I remember watching you on 9 News. Not growing up, but when I was a little bit older, but I
You can
remember
say,
it. So yeah,
no, it's been really fun to connect with all the women, and I appreciate that they appreciate me. They, a lot of them say they watched me and that was, why they got into it and knew that they could do it. And that is so cool to me. And it just keeps going. And now there's even more of us that keep watching the Romies and the Jennies and the Taylor McGregors. And now they're like, okay, now we get more women in. And it's super cool to help network all of them and just watch them grow, because they're going to go do more and more things. And soon it won't be first woman to do anything. It's just going to be like, and she got the job. And it's
yeah,
because she's the best one for it. And it doesn't need to be a big deal because she's a woman.
yeah, yeah. I've seen you do some of those networking with the network reporters who come in every week, and it's
Yeah.
just so cool that you're able to do that and connect
And
the
they're
whole
great.
community.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Because I've asked them, like, can you just talk to a little group of our girls? And they're like, sure, why not? I mean, they're just sitting there in the hotel room when they come in on a Saturday, and Tracy Wolfson's been great, and Aditi, and
Yeah.
they've been fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love seeing that. How have you seen things change over the course of your career with women in sports, and where does it still need to really change?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, I mean, way more of us. I mean, back when I first started covering the Broncos, I got my job at KOA in 1998, just after Super Bowl 32. And then it was at that point, it was me and Linda Bruin, who worked at the Rocky Mountain News. She's passed away. She had breast cancer and passed away many years ago, but she was a she was the only woman for a very long time covering the Broncos. And so then I came in, and then Lindsay Benton came in. And so there were about three of us then. And now we'll go. And I always whenever there's a bunch of us there, I'm like, we got to get a picture because there's eight of us here, covering the Broncos, which is really cool. And so there's just so many more women in the space, and women that are not just there as, I'm the token woman doing because they need to hire a woman. It's because they know what they're doing. They're smart, they're intelligent, and they do a great job. And so that's what's really cool is that, that's where I think it's changed. Where when I first got in, I mean, it was hard because, and I had a lot of support from guys around me, but it was always my thing of like, I need to make sure that everything that comes out of my mouth is right. I don't missay names. I don't do anything wrong because I will get called out in a heartbeat. And not that none of us get called out, guys will get called out too. But I think there was so much more of a magnifying glass on women of like, oh, if she screws up, I'm getting her. And then the guy next to me could say the name wrong and nothing would happen to him. So
Mm,
I think lessened a lot, and people aren't as, scrutinizing as much, but it also helps that there's just so many more in, and I thought I knew sports when I got in, and I didn't know, like,
yeah.
it's like, oh God, I knew nothing compared to, what I know now, and where I've been and the things I've covered and all the people I know. And now I know how to pronounce all the names right. And I remember one time I had to announce, we had the NHL All-Star game, and I was announcing the All-Stars, and I butchered every single hockey name. And I think Dave was like, oh my God, we need that lesson, Susie. Well, I've learned a few things since then, which is good. And as far as, second part of your question, where is it going? I think it can just only continue to grow, where we get more women, not only on the sidelines, you see a lot of women on sidelines, but in the booth, and women that, know what they're talking about. And that's really going into a lot of other sports, especially, soccer and a lot of sports. And as I think as more girls are playing flag football and understanding the game more and more, growing up in it like that, that's only going to bring about more women that, know their plays, know what's going on, and can get in that booth and feel comfortable and not feel like I'm going to get, chastised because I'm a woman in the booth and, I don't belong here. Yes, I do.
Yeah, of course. And it's awesome to see this market grow in particular. So many outstanding journalists, women journalists, and it's
We have
awesome to
so
see.
many.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You mentioned Jenny coming out of this market. Jenny went to the same high school as me. So really
She
cool to
did.
just see. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's awesome to see this market really thrive like that,
We've got
and
a
people
ton. And
continue
that
to
was what
grow.
Tracy was saying
Yeah,
too. She's like, I can't believe how many women are here that are doing sports. And I'm like, I know, it's great. It's really fun. And
yeah.
they're, like I said, they've been so great. The national gals, Elisa, who's over at the Broncos, she's the Broncos reporter there. She's like, I sent my tape to Tracy and Aditi and they critiqued it for me. I'm like, great.
Wow.
So that was the whole
Yeah,
point of me introducing everybody, was like, okay, I'll make that introduction and then it's up to you. And they've made these connections, and I'm like, go for it, girl. That's what it's all about.
yeah. Great, great. That's awesome. Great advice there too. So, okay. Do you have some time for just some quick rapid fire questions?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What
Hopefully.
the yeah. What's your favorite away stadium in the NFL?
Ooh, that's such a great question. So, and I hate to say this because I hate the Raiders, but I love Allegiant Stadium. And I love it because the atmosphere is totally Raiders. They always have amazing entertainment. And they do cool things too, like with up in the press box, they'll make food that's like Rocky Mountain omelet, or Rocky Mountain bars and Denver omelets, and so they make it themed to the team that's visiting, which no
Mm,
other team does, which I think is pretty cool. But they just have the vibe that you want for a home stadium. So it is one of my most favorites. A lot of people would think it'd be SoFi, which SoFi is beautiful and has all the bells and whistles, but it's very generic because it's shared with the Chargers and the Rams. So I don't feel like it's got that feel like an Allegiant Stadium does. So that's my favorite.
okay. Okay. I thought you were going to say black hole there at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
The new
Because Network
Raiders stadium.
Associates, which I
Okay.
went to, was a crap. So, and they have come
Yes.
so far since
Yes.
Network Associates, since the
Very
Coliseum.
much. Okay. And what's your favorite part about your job being there on the sidelines and talking to these guys?
Oh, you know what? There's a lot of favorite parts. I think my favorite is just being able to, we call it going into zones. So the sideline is my zone. So I take a lot of pride in watching, observing, figuring out things that, because I come with a lot of preparation, but there's things that happen on the sidelines that it doesn't matter. You know, the stats and whatnot, those can stay up in the booth, and Rick and Dave do those very well. So I like being able to watch and see what can I tell our listeners that they would not know otherwise, that they're not getting from what Dave and Rick are saying up in the booth, and what kind of, aside from an injury, obviously injuries I have to do, but what else is going on that I can check out and talk about and bring to our listeners. And then also, getting those on the field interviews and locker room stuff where you're like thinking on your feet, you got to come up with stuff really fast. That's challenging. Every week is different. Every game is different. So it's always cool it's nerve wracking, but it's cool to be in those situations of like, all right, what can I do? And my relationships have just become, so important with all of these guys. And I love, going in during the week and chatting with them. And I've got my go-tos that, even if we've lost, I know I can go to them and they're going to talk. My Jonathan Cooper is always there for me, my buddy. And then when we win, it's just like, it's that, oh my gosh, it's such a different feeling. And they're excited to talk, and they're great with me, which is really fun too. So I think that's my favorite part is the relationships. It is building that with the guys. And then also, again, feel like a mom every time they win. I'm like, oh yes, these are my guys. Love it. And so happy for
Uh,
them.
I love that. I love it. And then with your career, you mentioned you wanted to get to DJing on the radio side. When did you first know as a kid that maybe this is something that you really wanted to do?
Oh man, I mean, early on, Phil, because I've always been, my dad was a huge music person. And so I've been listening to music forever and ever. I mean, he was a turntable guy, mixtape, reel to reel. He had all the equipment, all the stuff. So I've always really been into music. And then I think once all the radio stations originally in Denver, I was just addicted to all of them. And then Steve Cooper, who was at KBPI, my idol, I used to tape his show at night when he was on the air. He had a top 8 at 8, and I would play it back and I would pretend I was him. And that was probably middle school. So, I mean, I knew early on that's what I wanted to do. I was just like, I want to be a DJ. I want to be around music all the time. I don't want to do my hair. I don't want to wear makeup. I want to wear whatever I want to wear to work. And so that's why there's that picture in that post of me in this god awful sweater standing with John Elway. And I'm like, no makeup, barely did my hair. And I'm like, God, girl, could you not looked a little better for a picture with John Elway?
Who would know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
who would
was
have
a
known all these years later?
27-year-old Susie. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
different.
and what's your favorite team to just root for away from work? Like, so it doesn't really involve what you do for work, but you're just a fan of this team.
Well, I mean, Colorado State, my
Yeah.
Rams. I got to say that. So, I mean, I am green and gold all the way through. That's where I went to school. My husband went to school. Our son went to school there. So many ties to the Rams. And I did sidelines for their football team for a couple of years in 99 and 2000 on the radio, and just have such passion for them. Love watching the women's basketball team. We know their coach very well. So again, and that's part of that relationship thing too. When you start to get close to people involved with the program or a team, then you kind of root for them even more. So yeah, I mean, it's between our Denver teams, with the Broncos being at the top, and then anything that Colorado State does.
Okay, well, we got our rivalry game coming up. I don't think it's this weekend, next weekend, Buffs and
No,
Rams
I'll be in
basketball.
Las Vegas. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that one from out there.
Yeah, yeah, that should be a good one. Okay, and then the very last question for you here, Susie, is after a long day, you're so busy, you got so much going on. I mean, we didn't even get to the podcast that you do. How do you unwind? How do you relax a little bit here at the end of a busy day?
So I'm a glass of wine person, love a red blend. I am a sucker for a nice red blend. So a glass of wine is one of my favorite things at night. Maybe a little dark chocolate, depends on how late it is. And you know what? We love catching up on, if there's not a game on that my husband and I are watching, we'll do a Landman or a Tulsa Kings, or we have some Blacklist. We have some shows that we just kind of watch every once in a while. So that's kind of my thing. It's a sit down and either watch a game with a glass of wine or check out something that we're keeping up with on Netflix.
Well, yeah, this is the heyday for TV, so it's awesome to
It
watch
is.
all these great shows. So
And
easy to just
Landman
get.
just started second season, so we're all
Yeah,
in.
You're like start watching a few episodes and then you're like, "Ooh, it's almost midnight. We gotta go to bed." I've been there a
Yeah,
lot.
it's definitely time to go to bed, and now I've drank 2 glasses of wine.
Yeah. Well,
We'll
Susie,
have to
I
revisit
kept
this
you.
episode so I can remember.
Well, I know. Yeah, exactly. It's just so easy to hit next, 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 next. So yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and it was great getting to talk Broncos and your career a little bit here. So I really appreciate it. I know, it's Thanksgiving week, so everybody's busy. So I really appreciate your time.
Good, Phil. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be on your podcast. I appreciate it.
My thanks to Susie for spending some time on the program here. A great conversation with Susie. She's gone through so much and is such a pioneer here for women working in sports. I mean, not just women. I mean, Susie is somebody to be looked up to. I mean, I look up to Susie, right? And so, she's a person who's done so much in sports in Denver. She MCs a bunch of events, Colorado Sports Hall of Fame every year. And she's just busy. She works at Remax as a realtor, and she's done so much radio and obviously television as well. So Susie, a person definitely to look up to, and such a great role model for anybody. But the work that she does with women who work in sports is really awesome to see. So thankful for Susie to spend some time here on the program this week. This matchup with Washington, Sunday Night Football, big time game. I'm interested to see how the Broncos bounce back after the bye week here, because I think that you win 8 games in a row, you're sort of in a rhythm. You sort of you know what your week is going to look like, and you're just rolling, right? And so I'm interested to see how the Broncos bounce back after a little bit time off. Time to get away, recharge the batteries here for the home stretch and a run that the Broncos obviously hope go through the playoffs. This Washington team comes in, on paper at the beginning of the year, you thought that this was going to be a huge matchup. Obviously, it's on Sunday Night Football. A lot of people were thinking this was going to be a big time game, but Washington just has not had the season that a lot of people thought that they would. They're not quite living up to the expectations that they set last year when Jaden Daniels, as a rookie, led that Washington team all the way to the NFC Championship. So, you feel for Jaden, who's had such an up and down sophomore season here. Obviously, had that gruesome elbow injury a few weeks ago. I think everybody saw that play where his elbow bent the wrong way. Hate to see that. And just Washington definitely not having the season that they were expecting. It will be cool to see Von go against the Broncos yet again. Von, 5 sacks this season for Washington as he continues to climb up the ranks here for all-time sacks. I really think that his goal is to get into the top 10 there, really just a slam dunk Hall of Famer. But I think once you get into that top 10, you're sort of in a special category. So excited to see what Von can do the rest of his career, and as he continues to plug away here, 5 sacks this year for Washington. But the rest of that Washington defense, not that great. Giving up a ton of yards at the bottom of the league and ranking, and yards allowed per game, points allowed per game, almost giving up 27 points per game on the defensive side. So expect the Broncos to have some success on the offensive side. And then on the defensive side, you know what this team is all about. I mean, if it's Marcus Mariota going for Washington, which is what we're sort of expecting here, expect a lot of pressure. And, I think the Broncos are going to try to force him into making some mistakes. And, we'll see what happens. But it seems like this should be a game that the Broncos win, and they should be able to showcase how good they are in front of a national audience. This Sunday night game at the end of a Thanksgiving weekend, that's sort of a special window, right? And that's sort of a time where, the weekend is winding down. People are turning on the game on Sunday night, and that's when you're able to really showcase what kind of team you are in front of a national audience. And, this team's, so many people are comparing this season to Super Bowl 50 season, but that Super Bowl 50 season, Sunday Night Football of Thanksgiving weekend, Broncos are playing the Patriots at home in the snow. C.J. Anderson in overtime winning that game. So this is a big game for the Broncos just in terms of trying to show everybody. I think most people have heard how good this defense is. A lot of people watched that Chiefs game and got a taste of it. This is a chance for the Broncos to really show, coming off of a bye, what they're able to do. I know that Sean Payton this week talked so much about addressing the penalty. That's something that they're going to have to continue to do here. I will get to some shout outs in just a second, but I do want to do a bourbon review here. This could be a nice addition to your Thanksgiving table. This is called Castle and Key Small Batch. Very cool bottle. I love the colors. This sort of royal blue with the gold is awesome. And this bourbon, sort of a copper color here. A copper color. At the top here, it says that it's been aged 6 years and it's 101 proof. And this is sort of interesting because Castle and Key for a long time had been known as a contract distiller. Okay. And so they were helping out other brands. Then in 2022, they started putting out their own bourbon. They started out at a lower proof, 98 proof, but now they've built up to here 101. So 50.5% alcohol by volume on this one. Really cool bottle. I got this at Costco for like $35. So pretty good deal, I think, here. And maybe let's see if this could be a nice addition to your Thanksgiving table. Maybe a little after dinner, you're sitting back, you're watching a little bit of football, and you're hanging out and just enjoying life there. Let's see if this is a nice addition. Really love the color. It's sort of a lighter color. I like that. I don't like it when there's too much color. If there's color added and it's so dark, just to sort of make it look a little bit more manly. I kind of like a lighter color, to be honest with you. So I did find the mash bill online here. 73% white corn, 17% malted barley, and 10% rye. Let's give this a nose here. I sound so fancy, right? Let's give it a nose. It smells like sort of light, sort of an apple smell. Maybe it's just a light hint of a vanilla, but mostly picking up on. It feels very light and sort of like an appley flavor, I guess I would smell here. So let's give it a taste. Interesting. It's sort of light very quickly at the beginning. And then a little bit of honey flavor, a little bit of oak flavor, and then surprisingly a little bit spicy at the end. You're picking up on that rye, even though it's 10%, picking up on it, a little bit of oak, maybe the age 6 years, you're picking up a little bit of that spice. But yeah, that's pretty good. It's like maybe a touch of like peach, touch of apple, like something light at the beginning, a little bit fruity. And then honey, definitely some honey. And then some spice there to finish. And the finish, spice, vanilla, and man, that first sip, it went like really fast. And then the finish lingered there as spice notes. But that first bit was really quick. And then the second one, yeah, I'm still getting new little tastes. Like I just tasted like a little bit of like almond or like oatmeal-y type of taste. And then the third sip, they're really smooth. So maybe just takes a little bit to get into it and then really, really smooth. So, I enjoy this one. Yeah, with a nice rock in there, this would be very nice. This is Castle and Key Small Batch. I'm not sure if you can get this everywhere, but I looked online and it seemed like at least half of the U.S. can get Castle and Key. Sort of a cool bottle, though. I like this. This kind of looks good on your bar cart. Makes people be like, hey, what is that? Let me tell you, I heard about it on Broncos and Bourbon. So, yeah, I like that bottle, and I really like the bourbon in it. So, yeah, that was tasty. So I highly recommend, especially if you can find this thing for $35. I mean, that's a heck of a deal. So, yeah, I appreciate that. So, okay, let's get to a couple of shout outs here. I got one from Chris Janook. He said that after watching last week's episode that he had just gone to US Bank Stadium in Minnesota, said he loved the experience there. And it was cool hearing Alan Roach over the PA, of course, the longtime Broncos PA announcer. Still hear him on commercials and stuff on KOA, the really deep voice. And you probably know him from saying, incomplete, if you go to a Broncos game. So that was a poor man's Alan Roach, but I gave it a shot. I went for it there. So thank you very much, Chris. 01. I could listen to Mace ramble about random football topics for 5 to 6 hours. Same here, Rambam. Thank you very much for the comment. Really enjoyed catching up with Mace. That was a great episode last week. Ray Raw is 4535, hanging out with you and Mace. Enjoyed that. Spent the night listening to the show. Followed him for a long time, but didn't know much about his past. So enjoyed to get to know Mace a little bit more there. Thank you very much, Ray Raw. Yeah, Mace, very interesting past, and obviously such a huge sports fan. So really cool. And then the last one here, I'm trying to read my handwriting here. I think it's POM SZJ 1992. Goodness, my handwriting is terrible. But it says, I love the episode, and he's listened to you and Mace since forever. Love your guys' football knowledge. And so, yeah, talking about me and Mace going back a long ways there and doing a bunch of different shows together over the years. So thank you very much. I think it's Palms J 1992. So anyway, thank you for those comments. Please, if you enjoyed the episode, if you enjoyed the bourbon, please leave a comment and subscribe while you're at it, because we enjoy building this community. We'll continue to do more and more shout outs, and appreciate everybody who's, the last 2 episodes we've done, Mark Schlereth and Mace, those have been the 2 best episodes of the entire year. So we'll see what this one does as we get set for a nice game against the Washington Commanders. My thanks again to Susie Wargin for taking some time to join the program. Such a pioneer for women in sports, and really anybody who's looking to get into sports can really look up to Susie, like I mentioned, and just a really inspiring person. And she does so much to pay it forward, and it's awesome to see that. So my thanks to Susie, and of course you can hear her on the Broncos sidelines for KOA every week. So she's getting set to head out to Washington for a big game on Sunday Night Football. All right, that's going to do it for us. Hope that you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Maybe enjoy some Castle and Key, and I hope that you get a chance to just slow down a little and enjoy some football and some good time with family and friends. For Broncos and Bourbon, I'm Phil Milani.